Hello and welcome to another edition of Straight from the Training Ground, the podcast where we share our love for the beautiful game and the people out in their communities doing beautiful things. And in honor of Women's History Month, we're very honored to have our special guest with us this week. She is currently the women's assistant coach at Xavier University. She has previously been the head coach at Pittsburgh University in Kansas. She's been an assistant at Arkansas State, Northwest Community College. She's been a high school head coach at Collierville High School in Tennessee. She's also coached boys and girls high school at Fayette Academy in Tennessee. She's been a part of the United Soccer Coaches Regional Staff of the Year. She has her C license and her master's degree from Ohio University. Ladies and gentlemen, Katie Smith.
Wow, quite an introduction.
I tried to do my research, okay? So we have a great story. We met at the United Soccer Coaches Convention actually over the winter. We had a good conversation, and you're very busy. So before we get into all the other questions, I know you've had a busy time trying to adjust to your new position. How's things been joining Xavier?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, the staff there are really incredible people and they've made the transition as easy as possible. I think the hardest thing is always just trying to figure out the logistics of where am I going to live and how far is it from school and when am I going to get my workout in. But I went my first full day there to a church and actually was able to get involved with the church group and they've become some of my good friends. And so I already have a friend group, have really incredible people that I work with. I've gotten more inclined to my schedule and it feels much more regular now. And I think for my first 2 weeks there, I kind of felt like it was a fever dream just because it was such a quick turnaround. And now it feels more real. And yeah, it's been a good adjustment. I'm really enjoying it. And I finally know all the players'
From when
names.
we talked last, we've been trying to get together for the podcast. I know you've been very busy, so it's a little bit of a whirlwind. So first, I'd just love to know, what kind of was your inspiration to becoming a coach in the first place?
Yeah, so I played sports my entire life. And honestly, I never really thought much about coaching. So I always wanted to be a teacher and I always planned on going into education. And when I was in high school and we moved to Memphis, my dad had just kind of said, "Hey, let's go church or let's go coach a church league basketball team together." And I was like, "Okay, sure." And I absolutely loved it. And then
Mhm.
when I graduated, he asked a lady at a school near where we lived if I could be a part of her coaching staff for the basketball team. And she said yes. And so basically, I just kind of started coaching through that and realized that I really enjoyed it. But I still thought that my path would just be like teaching in a school and being at a high school or college, or maybe, or sorry, not a college, a high school or a club, or maybe even a middle school. And so that was kind of what I thought my path was going to be. And so a few years later, I had been coaching high school. I had started coaching club. I had started my licensing. I was sitting at a Memphis 901 FC soccer game, and they don't exist anymore. So RIP to them. But I was sitting at a soccer game and I got a phone call from a guy named James Beatty, who's the head coach at Northwest Mississippi Community College, because we were working at the same club. And he said, "Have you ever thought about coaching college soccer?" And I was like, "No, not really." And at this point, I still had a year of my undergrad left. Like I said, was just coaching middle school and high school and club. And he said, "Well, I think you should come and try it." And I was like, why not? So I wound up being a part of his staff in the fall and I loved it. And that was when I kind of realized that I had an opportunity to maybe try to go into college coaching. And so later that year, when I graduated in May, I kind of had to decide between, okay, do I want to try to stay in education and teach and coach and do all of those things, or do I want to try and go into college full time? And it was a really difficult decision for me because I loved the school that I was at and I could have gotten a job there and it would have been great. And I eventually just decided that I can always go back and teach later, but I might not always have the opportunity to go coach college later. And I should just take it and see what happens. And so ever since then, my career has progressed pretty quickly and I've had some really cool opportunities along the way. And so now I'm just kind of riding the wave and seeing where it takes me. But yeah, so it all started with my dad, and I think he had a grand master plan that I knew nothing about, but it worked out for him. So here we are.
That's awesome. No, it's great to hear that. So what, as a female, it's Women's History Month, but I've coached girls myself for a long time. For all the girls out there, what are some challenges though that you face as a female coach?
Yeah, so I would say that it's definitely gotten better over the years. I think when I first started coaching, I saw a little bit more than I do now. But I would say for the most part on the women's side, I don't really face a lot of those sorts of problems as much. But I think where I see it a lot more is on the boys' side and the men's side. So I've coached UL2 men, and then I also have been coaching youth boys since I first started coaching basketball so many years ago. And on that side of things, I've always had a lot of people that have kind of doubted my ability. I've had a lot of people just assume that I'm not a head coach or make comments about it or whatever. And I know I'd been on another podcast a few years ago and I'd said there are more comments made than not. Like it's more rare to be coaching a game and something isn't said than something is said. And so I think that's where the biggest challenges lie is when you go into a space that is for boys and for men, right? Because I think
Yeah.
sports overall is a very male dominated arena, but I think when you get specifically into men's sports, it's even more so. And I think that not a lot of men and boys see women coaching them, and they're kind of like, oh, that's what the women's side is for. And so I think that that's been a challenge and that's been something that's been kind of reoccurring. And I think as I've gotten older and I've done it for more and more time, I'm a lot more comfortable now just kind of being like, whatever, screw off, you don't know what you're talking about. Whereas when I first started, I won't say it impacted me because I don't really tend to care what people think too much. But there were certainly moments where I would kind of be like, maybe like I should stay on the girl side, or maybe it would just be easier. But I think you grow the most when things aren't easy. And so I think just staying in the boys' side and continuing to try to open up that space is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it has to be a little intimidating, also in those spaces. And, I know it's different as a male coaching females, but it's got to be very difficult as a female coaching males. Like you said, when you enter that space. And so, that's a great accomplishment in and of itself to you and anyone out there that are females that do that. I think that's a pretty takes a special person to be able to kind of cross over and be able to do that, honestly. Um, what you've been a head coach, before, as you mentioned, at different levels, and now you're an assistant coach. So, one thing that I find interesting, people a lot of times just think coaching's coaching, right? Whether it's your role specifically at Xavier or anywhere else, what kind of adjustment is that like for you?
Yeah, so I think being an assistant is a lot more fun. I think when you're an assistant, you're more the supporter, and it's almost
Yeah.
like good cop, bad cop, right? Like someone has to be the bad cop and make all the decisions and take all the heat. And usually that's the head coach. And then the other people get to just kind of support the players and try to be a listening ear and try to encourage them. And so I think that's what's unique and special about being an assistant, because I think sometimes you get to make the same impact on the kids, but also without having to take those final decisions. Now, obviously, as a coaching staff, you're united and we make the decisions together, but the kids don't always view it that way. And so I
Yeah.
think as an assistant, that's a really delicate line of, once again, supporting the kids and encouraging and kind of being the one that can help walk them through those moments while also, of course, staying united with your head coach and kind of being able to, I guess, hold their decision, right? And so
Yeah.
that's where for me, like being an assistant is really fun. And then I think when you're a head coach, everything comes back to you, right? If you win, if you lose, if you make a decision, if something happens, like at the end of the day, it's all on you. And so I think that is also really cool. And I think it's also really special because it's yours. And at the end of the day, you have input and you get ideas, but like it's your program and you can do whatever you want. Whereas as an assistant, maybe sometimes you give suggestions or you notice things and they're not always taken, which is okay. But I just think that being a head coach, you have a lot more say in kind of how things run sometimes. And I think that also kind of depends on the head coach you work for and how receptive they are to feedback and things of that nature. But for the most part, I think the biggest difference is just the way that you are able to, I guess, interact with the kids and the amount of administrative and player kind of challenges that you have to deal with. And like I said, at the end of the day, everything falls onto you. Whereas as an assistant, once again, you can be a little bit more supportive and
Yeah.
encouraging. And, you know, at the end of the day, like it's not always your final decision.
You can bring the snacks.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And the players love that.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great point. No, and I agree. Yep. So what advice do you have, and as someone who's coached girls for a long time myself, What advice do you have? I find it difficult sometimes to get girls into coaching, and I like to tell them a lot as they get older, that we need more female coaches out there, not just in soccer, but in everything. What advice do you have to younger girls out there right now, um, you know, to get into coaching?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of challenges to get girls and women into coaching. I think there's a lot of societal norms that are challenging. I think just desires of when girls are younger and maybe they want to have a family or get married, and there's certain things that they look forward to, whereas we know that men tend to not think of those things until much later in life. And so I think these kind of structures really make it a challenge to get girls to want to go into an industry and a profession where it's a grind and it's nonstop. And I think really for me, it's understanding that you don't have to coach college, you don't have to coach in the NSSL, you don't have to coach at these high levels to be a coach and to impact kids. And you can coach one grassroots, one club team, and you can make an impact on those kids that will last them for a lifetime. And so I think it's understanding that it doesn't always have to be this one path where it has to have your whole life revolve around it. There's so many different ways and paths that we can coach in. And I think the ability to do that really starts at a young age. I think it's when you coach youth teams, not having two of your most talkative kids be the captains and that's it, and they lead, but it's, can we rotate captains? Can we get that quiet kid who leads by example in a leadership role? Can we help develop their voice, right? Because I think oftentimes we just pick the easy route. It's really
Yeah.
easy to take those two kids that do it themselves and make them captains and leaders. But the reality is, if you do that, are you really developing your entire team as leaders as much as you could be, right? And then the second piece to that is getting them to coach young, right? So
Yeah.
asking them questions, let them coach themselves. If you're in practice and you're scrimmaging, can you have a team captain that's coaching their own team? Can you let them reflect and give feedback versus you having to do all of it yourself, right? Now, obviously, as a coach, you want to guide them and help them, but moments like that help them learn how to see the game, but also how to relay it to their teammates, which is important because in a game, we don't have timeouts. We can't always pull them to the side. So being able to do that also translates to being successful in the game situation. And then the last piece is getting them coaching young. Do you have summer camps that you can let them run? Do you have sessions with maybe you're coaching high schoolers and they can go run a U6 girls session one night for fun? Like, are you giving them opportunities to go and get involved and be coaches and make an impact at younger ages? So that way, now when they get into even later high school into college, they've coached before, they've seen it and they like it and it's fun and something they want to do. I think it's the same as trying to get them to play soccer, right? At the end of the day, like they have to enjoy it. And so I think it's being creative and finding ways to get them involved in coaching younger and then supporting them along that path. And then once again, just re-emphasizing it doesn't have to be your entire life. It doesn't have to be college. It can be just coaching a U9 girls team at a local rec league. And that's okay because we need good people and we need women to do things like that. So once again, young women see women leading them. So
It could be a church basketball team, right?
absolutely. It's how it all begins, right?
No, great points there, and I love the way your ideas of putting them in positions to try it. And I'm sure that you would agree with this. Like myself, it's okay to make mistakes along the way. That's how you continue to grow as a coach and improve. Is you got to start somewhere. Like you said, for you it was youth basketball teams, whatever. But you just got to get in there and put younger players and girls in those positions to have the opportunity to try those things. So I love that. I totally agree. I'm gonna put you on the spot real quick. What are you the most proud of so far as a
I think
coach?
what I'm the most proud of so far is just how quickly my career has progressed. I've only been coaching soccer in total for 5 years, and I've only been at the college level for 3 years. And I've gone from coaching at a private Christian high school with 13 kids that were sophomores and younger, no club players, to being at Xavier. And I think sometimes that gets a little bit lost because sometimes when people play at the Division 1 level, they have an easier foot in the door, right? And so they can play at a Division 1 school, they can get a GA spot or a coaching spot right away, and then they're in. But for someone like me who never played at this level, I feel like I've really had to work my way and earn every single thing that I've gotten. And when I look at being at a school like Xavier a few years ago, like that was my dream. That's what I wanted to do. And when I finally made that decision of, okay, I'm going to go into college coaching and just be all in and see what happens, to make that decision and now 2.5 years later be at a school like this is actually pretty unbelievable. And actually, I guess it was a year and a half later, but besides the point. So I just like can't believe that. Well, actually, I'm not going to say that. Hold on. It's just been super cool to see how I've been able to go from that to here and knowing that nothing has just been given to me because, oh, I was a Division 1 athlete or I played at this level or whatever. Like I've had to prove that I'm good enough to hang with the best of the best. And I've been able to do it. And for someone, I mean, I don't know. For me, I feel like I'm just living the dream. And it goes back to I feel like I'm in a huge fever dream and everything that I've done, I'm like, I can't believe that I got here. And then something happens again. Right. And so, yeah, I'm just really proud of the way that I've, I guess, fully bought in and invested. And I give every single moment that I have to improving myself as a coach, as a leader, and to just go all in and see what happens and to chase a dream. And so far, it's been a really cool experience. And, it's things like this where I sit there and I'm like, wow, this is all paid off. And even this past weekend, I was at the Marshall Islands women's national team camp. And I remember about maybe a year ago, I had mentioned to someone, man, I really want to get involved in national team coaching. And they laughed at me and they said, yeah, you're a long way off of that.
Yeah.
And, at the time, I didn't think much of it. But 6 months later, I was offered a head coaching job of a national team. And so I think it's moments like that where because of the level I played at, because of my age, maybe because of my gender, like whatever it is, right? There's been so many people along the way that have been like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Or, oh, yeah, that's going to take you a long time. I recall even a few months before I got the Xavier job, I was talking to someone and they said something about, oh, like, where do you want to be? And I was like, well, I'm hoping to leave Pitt State and go to a major D1 program. And same thing, they laughed at me and they were like, yeah, I think you're going to have to do something else in between those two. And of course, now that's what happens. So I think it's like, it's just funny because I think that when you lay it out, it makes no sense. And I think when you ask people, or when I used to say, like, this is what I'm going to do, or this is what I want to do, so many people would be like, well, that's not possible. And it is because now I'm living it and I did it. And so I think it's just being able to not buy into that, being able to believe in myself, believe in the vision that I have, being able to work really hard and make it happen and almost will it in a way has just been really cool. And I think that it's something that not a lot of people would have been willing to do. And the sacrifices that I've made, I don't think most people would make them. But I think that's also why I've been able to accomplish something that most people can't. And so I'm really proud of myself for that.
Well, you should be. That's amazing. And I think the most important thing that anyone should take away with it, and I'm not just saying this, even yourself, is that it's about the journey, right? No, everyone takes a different path, a different journey to get to their destination. And I think it says a lot about your confidence and perseverance. And as someone who's coached girls for a long time, I love your confidence and your perseverance to get to where you want to be. So if you're just joining us again, we're here with assistant women's coach at Xavier University, Katie Smith. Katie, I know you're very busy right now, so we'll get you out of here. One last question real quick. Long term, what would you love to be able to accomplish when you're done coaching?
Yeah, I think for me, I am super grateful to be where I am. And I think that a few years ago, when I would have been asked this question, I'd be like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do this. And I think what I've learned is just what you said. It's all about the journey, right? And it's learning to be where your feet are. And every school that you work at is your dream school, right? Pitt State was my dream school. And now Xavier is my dream school. And every school that I'm at, like that's where I want to be. And that's why I'm there. And so I think it's really just, I mean, this is very, I guess, ambiguous, but for me, it's just, I want to continue to push myself. I want to continue to try to be the best I can be. I think a general goal, like one day I would love to be a head coach of my own program. I think I would also love to continue on the national pathway and keep making an impact there. I've been on record to say many times that I want to coach on the U.S. youth national teams, but on the boys side, and I still stand by that. I still would like to do that at some point. And so now kind of working my way through, I guess, the youth landscape and trying to continue to improve myself at that age group, kind of in the youth levels. But I think really for me, like, just keep doing what I'm doing, keep staying on the path, see what doors open and what doors close, right? And I think it's just kind of taking it one step at a time. So I don't have any like super big, oh, this is what I want to do, I guess. But I feel like right now I'm really happy with my progress so far, and the sky's the limit. So you will see.
Just keep on keeping on, right? So
Right.
you should. Congratulations again, Katie Smith, the women's assistant coach at Xavier. Congratulations on everything you've accomplished to this point. I know it's been a bit of a whirlwind for you getting accustomed there to Xavier. So I'll let you go, and you have a busy spring still ahead of you. So we wish you and the Xavier women's program the best of luck next year. And Katie, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you. Glad we were finally able to make it work.